It was a cloudy afternoon in a small countryside town, the kind of day where even the birds seemed too quiet, and the wind whispered secrets through the trees. The old church bell rang softly, once, twice, echoing through the valley. As villagers gathered for the funeral, black umbrellas dotted the road, faces were wet with tears. But one figure stood out among the crowd. It wasn't a person. It was a dog. A German shepherd, tall, alert, and trembling, stood rigid in front of the coffin, staring at it, barking. Attacked people tried to shoo him away. Some said, "Whose dog is this?" Others whispered, "Why is he here?" He wouldn't budge, he barked. Then whined. Then barked again, not out of fear, not out of anger, but as if he was trying to say something. This is not where the story begins. To understand why that dog was there and what miracle he was, about to unleash, we must go back. It was a few months earlier. In a cozy little town on the edge of the woods, there lived a woman named Clara. Clara was in her 60s, a retired school teacher. She lived alone, in a white wooden house with red shutters and a picket fence, but she was never truly alone, because she had Max, her German shepherd, her best friend, her shadow. She had rescued Max when he was just a pup, trembling by the roadside in a storm. Since then, they'd been inseparable. Every morning, Clara would make tea, and Max would wait by the back door with his leash in his mouth. They'd go walking through the meadows. Rain or shined every evening, Clara would read a book and Max would rest his head on her lap, eyes closed, tail wagging softly. They understood each other without words. But as the seasons passed, Clara grew weaker. The walks became shorter, the teacups more fragile in her hands. Our laughter quieter one evening as golden sunlight poured into the living room. Clara gently stroked Max's head and whispered, "If something happens to me, boy, promise you'll find someone to love you again." Max tilted his head, confused. He could sense something, but not understand. It was late October when it happened. The leaves had just turned amber. Clara had been feeling dizzy for weeks, but she brushed it off. Just age, she'd say. That morning, Max barked frantically at the bedroom door. He could tell something was wrong inside. Clara had collapsed on the floor. Her lips were pale, her breaths slow. Max barked, howled, scratched the door when no one came. He did something no one believed a dog could do. He ran, through the front door. Clara had left open, through the fields, down the road to the neighbor's house. It's a mile away. He barked like mad until the farmer opened the door, and then he ran back, barking. Waiting, that's how help arrived. But it was too late now. Clara was gone. And Max wouldn't leave the coffin. It had been ours. The priest had finished, the villagers had left, but Max stayed. Barking, barking, barking. Finally, a young girl named Emily, no more than 10, approached. She was Clara's distant niece, a shy, quiet child who rarely spoke. She knelt beside Max and said softly, "Do you miss her too?" Max stopped barking. He looked at her, then did something strange. He stood up, barked once, then ran toward Clara's house. Emily watched in confusion, but something told her to follow. Emily followed Max all the way to Clara's old home. The house was locked, silent like a time capsule, but Max paced by the back door, whining. Emily managed to crawl through a doggy door Clara had once installed. Inside, the air was cold, everything untouched. Max ran to the fireplace and began scratching at the wooden floor. Emily was startled. "Stop! What are you doing?" But Max didn't stop. He was digging at the floorboards like his life depended on it. And then she heard it. A soft, distant sound. Tapping. Emily froze. "Is someone down there?" Max barked and stepped back. Emily reached down, her fingers trembling, and lifted a loose floorboard. Beneath it was a dark hole, a hidden cellar, and from within it, "Help!" A voice faint, weak, human. Emily screamed and ran for help. By nightfall, fire trucks, paramedics, and townspeople surrounded Clara's house. They opened the hidden cellar door when Clara had kept secret from nearly everyone. A door even the police hadn't found. And inside was a man, barely alive, pale, covered in dust. It was David, Clara's son, a man. Believed to be missing for 5 years, everyone had assumed he'd run away. But here he was, weak, starving, yet alive. David was taken to the hospital when he could finally speak. His voice cracked with emotion as he explained, "I had come home that night 5 years ago. I had lost everything, my job, my money. Clara let me stay. But I drank too much. We fought. I fell through the trapdoor in the basement by accident, hit my head, passed out. She never found me." He paused, tears in his eyes. But someone kept coming every day. A dog, he would drop food. Water, he kept me alive. Everyone gasped. It was Max. And find food scraps from the kitchen. Water in an old plastic bowl at first. He thought it was a dream, but the dog came back, again and again. Sometimes Max would dig through locked cabinets to bring whatever he could. Sometimes he'd whimper. When David was too weak to eat, sometimes he'd rest his head on the floor above the trapdoor. For hours, and when Clara died, Max knew he couldn't protect her anymore, but he could still save her son. And he did. The town was shaken. The mayor called it a miracle of instinct, loyalty, and love. The local paper ran the headline, "Dog saves man, lost for 5 years, loyal to the end." But Max didn't care for headlines. He only cared that David was safe. David stayed in the hospital for weeks, recovering slowly. He'd been given a second chance, not by fate, not by doctors, but by a dog who refused to give up. Emily visited often. She'd sit quietly with Max, brushing his fur, telling him stories. One day she looked at David and asked, "Are you going to keep him now?" David looked at Max, then looked away. "Don't know if I deserve him." He meant it. How could someone who disappeared, who drank away his life, ever deserve a creature that faithful? But Max, as always, didn't judge. He just walked over to David, placed his head gently on his lap, and closed his eyes. Forgiveness, unspoken, instant. Total David began to change. He walked a little more each day, ate better. He laughed again. Something no one had heard from him in years. He started writing, journaling what he remembered. Not just the darkness, but the light Max had brought in. He told Emily, "Some people call him just a dog. But he's more than that. He's the only soul who remembered me when the world forgot." Weeks turned to months. David left the hospital, moved into Clara's house. It was painful. Everything reminded him of her. But Max made it easier. Together, they repaired what was broken. Not just the house, but each other. On Clara's birthday, David lit a candle in the living room. Emily stood beside him, holding Max's paw. She'd be proud. Emily whispered. David nodded. Then he told her something strange. Max still barks at night, always at the same spot, near the old fireplace. Emily's eyes widened. "Do you think he still hears something?" They checked again. The cellar was empty. No voices, no signs. But Max kept barking. Until one night, storming. Thunder shook the walls. Rain pounded. The windows. Max stood by the fireplace, barking louder than ever. David rushed down, flashlight in hand. "Max, what is it?" "What do you hear then?" He saw it. A glint of metal behind a loose brick, buried deep in the wall. A box. Dusty, rusted, hidden for years. David pulled it out with shaking hands. Inside, letters. Dozens of them, all addressed to him. From Clara. Some were never sent. Some had tear stains. Some simply said, "I hope you're alive. I miss you. I forgive you." David fell to his knees. Max licked his hand. Even after death, Clara had tried to reach him, and Max had led him to her voice. It was the final miracle. Not of survival, not of discovery, but of healing. David spent the next year turning the house into something new. A rescue center for lost dogs, abandoned ones, old ones no one wanted anymore. He named it Clara's Haven. Max became its heart. He would greet every new dog, sleep beside the scared ones, teach the humans how to love again. Children came from all over to pet the miracle. Dog newspapers returned, stories were written, but the truest story, the one people whispered when no one was listening, was this: a dog saved a man, not with teeth, not with speed, but with loyalty and love, and a bark that refused to be ignored. Max lived a long life after that, and on the day he passed peacefully, beside the fireplace, David buried him. In the garden next to Clara, he planted a tree there with a plaque that read, "To the dog who never gave up," and taught us all to believe again. And every year, on that day, children come. They sit by the tree. They tell Max's story. And sometimes, just sometimes, if the wind is just right, you can still hear a bark. Gentle, persistent, full of purpose, and you'll remember miracles are real, especially when they have 4 legs, a wagging tail, and a heart bigger than